Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Prep 2.1. So we begin here with measurements, and here you're asked to evaluate whether a measurement is qualitative or quantitative, and then indicate the level of measurement. And this is all done through drop-down. So for example, temperature in degrees Fahrenheit, that is quantitative, right? But the level of measurement here could be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. In this case, it's going to be interval. So interval and ratio are both for numbers. The difference is that ratio has a 0 point and interval does not, and temperature doesn't really have, or at least the way we use it, doesn't have an absolute 0 point. So we're going to call that interval. The age of a student, again, quantitative. This time it is ratio because you can be 0 years old. And the colors of cars available of a particular brand, that is qualitative. And the level of measurement is nominal. The difference between nominal and ordinal, these are both for qualitative measurements. Nominal is just if we name things, but they aren't in any particular order, and colors of cars are not in any particular order. The student's date of birth would be qualitative, and again, no particular order to the states, so it's just nominal. Class is qualitative, but this time, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior do appear in a particular order, so even though they're nominal categories, they appear in a particular order, so it's ordinal. And then I'll let you do the last two on your own. Okay. Counts. So here we're looking at the count and count A and count ifs functions, lots of functions. So let's go ahead and start with equals count, and this is the number of accounts opened with valid account balances. Highlight all the opening deposits and we get 32. Now we're going to look at the total number of accounts, even if they don't have a valid opening balance. So that equals count A. So count will only count if there's a number there. Count A will count no matter what's in the cell. And so that's 33. So why is there the difference? The difference comes down to this cell right here. Because this is an NA, so there is no valid opening balance. That NA is counted by count A, but it's not counted by count. All right, now we go to count ifs. So in this case, we'll do count ifs, and then the criteria range. This is going to be number of accounts opened. Okay, and then for the different names. So the criteria range here is that the name are going to be the names. And usually with ranges, especially if we're going to copy them, we lock the range. And then the criteria is that it's Brian Jones. And so he has, that customer service rep opened 11 accounts. Cindy opened 7, Jim opened 6, and Tina opened 9. All right, now let's look at continuous criteria example, hard-coded. Hard-coded simply means that we type in the boundaries right inside the formula. So we'll do count ifs. Oops, I gotta spell it right. Count ifs. So the criteria range here is going to be all the accounts. We'll lock that, comma. And then the first criteria that we're going to match this criteria range again is that it's greater than or equal to 0. So we'll put greater than or equal to ampersand and then a 0. So it's going to be greater than or equal to ampersand 0. And the reason that we have to do it this way is because we want the 0 to be a number, but the greater than or equal to is not numeric, it's text. So we're mixing numbers and text together, and so we can't have them in the same quotes. Okay, and then the second criteria range is the same thing, because we're comparing that same criteria. And in this case, we're going to say that it's less than 1,000. So put the less than, because it's not a number, in quotation marks, ampersand 1,000. And notice there's no comma or anything in the 1,000. We get 7 there. Now, this is tricky because we can copy, but it's not going to. We're going to have to then edit each of the copies. So in this case, that was greater than 0. Now it's greater than 1,000 and less than 2,000. Same thing here, greater than 2,000, less than 3,000, and greater than 3,000, less than 4,000, and greater than 4,000, less than 5,000. Okay. Now, what if we wanted a formula that we could copy, so we didn't have to edit each one? And then we're going to do it with dynamic references, which is this here. So we're going to do this same thing, but this time with a formula that could be copied. In order to do that, we've got to split the numbers up into 2 columns so that we can address them individually. So equals count ifs, and the criteria range. This criteria, it's going to be the same criteria range. And the first criteria is that it's greater than or equal to ampersand, the lower bound, comma, and then that same criteria range, which is locked, comma, is less than the upper bound. And now, if we've done that right, this formula will copy, and it does. And by the way, you could center all these too if you really want to make it pretty. Like that. Okay. So next one is sum function and sum ifs function. So we'll start out with just straight L sum and add all these up. And we'll do the same thing over here, equals sum, same thing, and add them all up. Okay, now we'll do the sum ifs. So equals sum ifs, the range that we're going to sum is the opening deposits. We'll lock that because we are going to copy this formula. The criteria range, now the criteria that we're summing is based upon who the service rep was. So that's the criteria range over here. And the criteria on this line is that it's this guy, Brian Jones. All right, we got it except the wrong formatting. We want the currency in 0 decimals. Force the regrade and copy it down. Okay, now if we have 2 bounds, the continuous criteria example, then it's going to look a lot like the sum ifs one or the count ifs on the previous page. So sum ifs, the range that's going to be summed are the deposits, which actually is the only field we could sum here because it's the only quantitative field. The criteria range, right, that's also going to be the same thing, same range. And notice how I'm locking all the ranges just because I want to be able to copy them. Criteria range, and the first criteria is going to be greater than or equal to, in quotes, ampersand, lower limit, comma, and then one more time with that criteria range, lock it, is less than ampersand, the upper limit, and then format it as currency, 0 decimals, and copy it down. Okay. Now, another approach, if you don't like that ampersand business here, you could actually put the operator right next to the number and then just work it into the equation that way. So what we would end up with is equals sum ifs sum range, and the criteria range, again, in the same range every time. But this time the criteria, we just have to click on it, and that gives us the whole thing. There's no ampersand because the greater than or equal to is already in there. It's kind of nice. And then do it again for the other one, for the upper bound. And then pick the upper range. And let's format it. And then copy it down. Great. All right, now let's look for extreme values on the next tab. So the minimum opening deposit is going to be min of all these guys. The maximum deposit is going to be max of all these guys. The second smallest is going to be, there actually is a function called small. It's all these guys, and the k says if it's the first, second, third, whatever. So we put a 2. And that's got to be counting 0 decimals. All right, and you're probably wondering, why aren't I forcing the regrade? Well, because I know when I do the next thing, that'll force a regrade anyway, so I'm sort of cheating. Well, not cheating, but shortcut. Okay, so equals large, the array, comma, and we also want the second largest. Yeah, see how that one made that one reformat. Still got to reformat this one though. So, let's go here. And I'll do the F9 there, just to make sure before I go on. All right, min ifs. So I do, equals min ifs, and the range. Okay, and we want to lock that because we are going to copy it. The criteria range is the sales rep. That's what we're going to base our decision on. Sort of the minimum, if the sales, basically the minimum for Brian Jones, minimum for Cindy, minimum for Jim, etc. And then the criteria is the name of the salesperson. And that has got to be the same thing, the currency. And then copy that down. And then let's do the same thing for max. Criteria range is the salesperson. We're making our decision based on the salesperson, and that's the salesperson. Okay. Next is population mean. So we can calculate the mean 2 ways. We can do sum of all of these divided by count of all of these. It looks like that. And I've got wrong format, so I need to be number 1 decimal point. And then we can also use average of all of these. And the average gets both of those in one fell swoop so that I don't have to do it twice. I'll force the regrade there. Okay, sample mean. So we'll do the average of the opening deposits, and then do average ifs, the average range, so that we're going to average these guys, the opening deposits, lock it because we are going to copy it. And the criteria, we're going to average them based on who the salesperson was. And the first salesperson for this row is this guy. And then copy. Okay. Now we'll do an average ifs with continuing criteria. Average ifs. The average range again are the deposits. Lock it. The criteria is going to be the deposits again. Lock that. And then we've got here the operator attached to the number, so that makes it a little bit easier. So there's the first one. And then grab it again. Lock it. And then pick the second criteria. And then copy it down. Hopefully I got the format right. Okay. Now, you notice the instructions up here say if there's an error, like in this case division by 0, that just means that it didn't hit anyone, so it ended up giving a division by 0. Then show an empty string instead of this ugly error message. So what we're going to do, what we do in that case is we wrap the whole function that we just created in an if error. So we go to the start of the function here, we put if error, open parentheses, and then at the end we put a comma, and now we're at value. If there's an error, what value do we want to show? We want to show an empty string, which is double quote, right next to each other, nothing in between. And then we'll copy that function down. And the only line it will affect is this one, because that's the only line where there was an error. Okay, now we're on to median. Equals median of all these numbers. And then now we need median if. Equals median. Now the problem that we run into is that there is, like we had average if and all that stuff, there is no median if function. So we actually have to combine it ourselves. So we start with the median function, then we make an if function. And the logical test on the if function is going to be that these guys here, that the sales rep is equal to Brian Jones. So if that's true, then we actually want the median of the numbers that come up, the subset of numbers that come up. So let's grab all those numbers and lock all that range. Because I left off a parentheses. So that's what it's going to look like. So median if the sales rep is Brian Jones. And if it is, then give the median of the opening deposits, which is the last argument here. All right, and now this is going to be the same thing, the currency 0. Copy it down. All right, now we've got median if with 2 criteria. So this is kind of tricky, right? Because it would be really nice if there was a median if, but there's not. So we're going to start out the same way. Median if, and we're after the lower limit first. So if this range which we lock is greater than or equal, then we need that ampersand thing. Oh no, we don't. Actually, we just go greater than or equal to this lower limit, comma. All right, well, if that's true, then we have to test also if it's less than the upper limit. So we start another if statement. So if the same range which will lock is less than the upper limit. All right, then if all that's true, then what we actually want to see is the median of those numbers. So we actually have to give it those numbers. We want the median of all those numbers that are there. And then if it's false, we don't care. So we're actually done now. So we just close one parentheses, close two, close three. And again with the currency, F9, copy it down. Okay, the mode is going to be, notice there's different kinds of mode. We're going to use the fancy one called mode single. And then this is for age. And then we do it for rating. Unfortunately, they're not like right next to each other, so it's kind of a bummer. Now, what we can do is do a little bit of a cheat, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I can copy it's not going to copy well, but I can copy the formula twice over. Then, it's kind of a cool cheat. You click on this one, you double click on it, and you go, hey, you're getting the mode of the wrong column. It actually needs to be rating. So, but we can just drag over what you should be highlighting, which is that. Hit enter. And the same thing here for the salary. It's on the wrong column. Just put it where it should be. And then fix the formatting. Oh, it's supposed to be 2 decimals on this case, okay. Okay, now in this bottom table, first we're going to count number of occurrences. So that equals count ifs, and the criteria range is going to be the rating. And we'll lock that. And the criteria is that the rating is the rating on this line, which is a 9. Copy that down. All right, now we need the mode for age. So this is going to be mode dot single, but it's if. Okay, so why is there an if? Because we want the mode for age if the rating is a 9. So if the rating is equal to the 9 on this line, then we want the mode of salary, so we have to give it all the salaries. And lock that range as well. Close parentheses. And I made a mistake. Okay, so let's see. So we got the mode if the rating is this one, then we're going to give it the purple, which is, oh, it's not salary, it's supposed to be age. Can't read. So I'll just drag this one over there to age. And then copy it down. Don't worry about these NAs for now. I'll show you how to fix them in a second. Now I'll actually do the one that, for some reason, I did on that last one. So I'll do the same thing. It's the mode dot single if the rating is equal to 9. Now we actually do want salary, so it's this one. And I just left off a parentheses, so it corrected me. And then I'll make that currency, take away the decimals, and F9, copy that down too. Now that also has NAs. All right, so for these two columns, the thing up here says if you get an error, instead of showing an error message, which is the NA, or not applicable, not found, then just show an empty string, which is 2 double quotes next to each other. And so the way that you do that in Excel is you go back to the first formula in the column and you put if error, one word, open parentheses, and then you go all the way to the end of the whole thing, put a comma, and then it's, well, what value do you want if error? And the value that we want is double quote, which is the empty string. Now if we copy that down, those NAs will disappear and they're replaced by empty strings, whereas all the other lines that didn't have an error are left unaffected. So we have to do the same thing here. If error, open parentheses, and then go ahead and put the empty string at the end, copy it down. Okay, getting close to the end. The weighted mean, this is kind of cool. So you've got all these grades, and then you've got the weights. And the weights are off here to the side. First they're shown horizontally, and then they're shown vertically, just so you get the ability to work with transpose as well. So we're going to go equals, and this is where we can use that sum product again, which is a really cool function. So we're going to grab all these grades for student 1 as the first array, and then the second array are the grade weights. Now the second array needs to be locked. Why? Because we're going to copy this down, and as we copy it down, we want it to change from student 1 to 2, 3, 4, etc. But we always want the weights to refer to the same cells. And let's go ahead and make that percent with 2 decimal places. Okay, and then copy that down. And now we'll do it with the transpose. So it's going to be sum product again. There's the first array. But for the second array, we're going to put transpose. And then this guy down here. Oh, and we need to lock this guy because we're going to copy it. Fix the formatting. Copy it down. All right, in the next one, we're going to round up. So grab, it can be actually either one of these, equals, and put round up this guy to 2, it says 2 decimals, so 2 digits. And then we will, it's supposed to be percent with 1 decimal. So take away a decimal, and then do the F9, copy it down. All right, now we're into dispersion, which is actually a really important concept later in the course as we get into statistics. So we're talking about variance and standard deviation and range, so a lot of cool stuff. So there is no function in Excel for range. So what you have to do is you have to do equals max of, in this case we're in the rating column, so the max of all ratings, and then subtract from that the min of all ratings, so minus min of all the same column. I left off a parentheses, got unhappy. All right, and that's my range, which should be number 1 decimal. Let's regrade that. Okay, now I should be able, because this is rating, age, and salary in the same order, I should be able to sneak across and just copy it. Let's see if that works. Good. All right. And then for variance, equals variance. There's two kinds of variance. There's population and sample. We're going to call this a sample. So variance.s. And this is first the variance of the rating. And that's supposed to be number 1 decimal. Again, should be able to copy across. Maybe not. I must not unlock something. Oh no. The problem is that I did lock it. Okay, sorry. Let's take away the lock. So take that away. And now copy it across. There. All right, and then the standard deviation. And there's two forms of standard deviation. We'll use the .s form because we're going to call this a sample. So standard deviation of the ratings. This time I won't lock it. And that's going to be number 1 decimal. Function F9. Copy that across. Oh, okay, that one didn't work because this is salary. In fact, none of these really should have worked. Kind of surprised. But they did, except for this one, which this one's going to be currency accounting. The other should have been too. Currency accounting. Maybe we'll get that fixed by the time you get the assignment. And there we go. Okay, so now we have variance for age and salary for each rating. So let's start out with the number of occurrences, which is the count ifs, the rating, lock that range. Is this 9? Okay. And then this is going to be the variance. If the rating is 9, we want the variance for age, for all people whose rating is 9. So that's going to be variance.s if the ratings, lock that range, if the ratings equal 9. then we're going to do the age column. This is what we're actually taking the variance of. Let's see how we did. Missing cell reference. Oh, I shouldn't have typed the 9. It's got to be this guy. All right. Run format, number 1 decimal. Good. Copy down. Don't worry about that. Well, now you know how to fix this. Might as well fix it. So we just wrap the whole thing in an if error. If all that's an error, then we'll show the null string. Copy that down. All right, and then the variance if salary equals variance.s if the ratings equal to 9, and then we need the variance of the salaries. That's number 1 decimal. Copy that down. All right, same thing here. We got to wrap it. If error. And then it's the empty string. And copy that down. Now, this next one is going to be identical to this one here, except wherever you saw me put variance.s, var.s, you're going to put standard deviation or stdvv.s, just like you did up here, stdev.s. So I'm actually going to challenge you and see if you can do that one, because you can just keep referencing back here. This first column will be identical, but then these next two, the standard deviation.s instead of variance.s, will take care of those. So, nice to end on a challenge. Take care and enjoy.